What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Programming Knowledge, and this is the third and last video on how to create user login in PHP. So in the previous tutorial we have added the elements and also added the styles of this login form. So now let's do the quick fix for this login button, extending way beyond the user and password elements. So let's go back to our login.php code. Okay, so here in our code, I think we have mistyped the class for login container. So instead of dash, let's make it an underscore. So it would reflect, or it will be the same with the login container that we have defined in our styles.css. So go ahead, save your file, login.php, and go back to our browser and refresh. So as you can see, the login button is now aligned with the two elements, or the username and password elements at the top. So let's continue working on with this login form and work with our actual logic to allow the user to log in this particular login form. So before going any further, let's try to move this form or the end form tag. So we would include the login button. So at the end of our code, just before or right before the end body tag, let's add another script to work with our login logic. So inside here, let's define the onload function of the jQuery. Okay, let's try it first if it's working or not. So alert. So save our file login.php and go back to our browser, refresh the page, and we have the alert that's saying alert. So next, let's try to select our button. So our button has the class login. So if this button is clicked, we will do some logic inside this function. So let's try this first, and let's try to see if this is working or not. So log in that PHP, save, and go back to our browser, refresh, and let's try to click on this login button. So it's working. Okay, so let's remove this and let's define a new variable here which is valid. Let's just check if the validity of our forms is true. So if the form is valid, let's get the value of our username. Okay, so target our username, which is with the ID username, and get the value. The same thing with our password. So the same with password ID. So the name of this variable will also be password. And let's prevent the submission of this form, because we're going to be doing the submission by using the Ajax call to a GS login.php file. So this part right here, let's define the Ajax call. Okay, so the type will be post. Okay, and the URL will be gs login.php, and the data, of course, will be our username and password. Okay, so username, and then pass in the value username, and password, and the value password. So if this is successful, let's display alert first, success, and if it's not a success. Of course, let's define also our display alert. This will be errors, or there were errors while doing the operation. Let's just change this later on. Okay, save our file and go to js-login.php. Let's just try to echo something here. So hello from js-login.php. Okay, save js-login.php and go back to our browser, refresh, and click on this login button. So I think we have an error, so let's try to troubleshoot. So accordingly, type error e prevent default is not a function. Let's try to troubleshoot the problem. So accordingly, e prevent that default is not a function because we missed the t letter there. So save login.php and go back to our browser again, refresh, and click on the login button. So accordingly it was a success. The next step is we're going to work with our config.php to actually connect our code to database or MySQL database. So config.php, let's open the PHP tag here and define few variables so that we could connect to our database. So the user for my case is root, the password is empty, and the database name, as we have defined earlier, is the user accounts. Okay, let us connect to our database with the PDO. So inside here, let's type in MySQL host equals localhost, and our DB name will be equals the DB name, the variable that we have defined at the top, semicolon, and the character set for this will be UTF-8, and of course we need to pass in the user and the password. Yes, and let's just set a single attribute for this video object. Set attribute will be for video attribute, error mode, and of course video colon and error mode will be to return exception whenever there's an error. Okay, so once we have that, we could include this to our JS login.php. So here we could type in require once the config.php, and let's try to use our video object. So select all from users for now, and define a statement. It's the empty select, of course using the video object, prepare, and of course the SQL. So the result will be select and then execute, and let's just pass in an empty array, and if result yes, echo success. Okay, else there were errors while connecting welcome to database. Okay, so semicolon. And let's go back to our login.php. So instead of success, let's alert the data coming from the JS login.php. So login.php, save, and go back to our browser, refresh, and type in something and click on login. So we have an error there. Accordingly, undefined class constant error mode because we have mistyped this error mode exception. So instead of error mode with all the letters typed in, so let's just make it ERR mode. So save the config.php file and refresh our page and click on the login button. So hello from JS login.php. So accordingly it was a success. So in our JS login.php file, instead of success, so let's define a new variable that will hold all the data coming from the database. So fetch and then video fetch associative array, and then let's just var dump the user variable for now and save the file. Go back to our browser, refresh the page, and type in some values and click on login. So we have the record with the first name Jane and the last name Doe with janedoe@gmail.com as the email, and phone number is there also. Password is Jane Doe, so it's working. Okay, so instead of selecting all users, we need to filter out with the username and password, but we're going to use the email as the username for now, and the password equals limit 1. So username, this will be the values coming from our login form, post, which is username, and the same with our password. Let's just pass in the password. Okay, password. So instead of passing an empty array, let's pass in the username and the password and define an if statement or stmt select row count is greater than 0, meaning we have a success. We found the user in our database. Else there's no user for that combo or something. Combo and close our statement. Instead of success, let's just echo a value 1, and we'll check here in our login.php if the value is 1, if the response is with the value 1. So we need to trim the data coming from our JS login.php, and let's check if it is equal to 1, and let's redirect our user, set timeout window that location that href equals the index with double quote index.php, and set the delay for about 2 seconds. Okay, save our login.php and let's go back to our JS login.php. So we have here line number 4, echo hello from JS login.php we need to remove this. So save JS login.php and go back to our browser, refresh. So for example, you have jando@gmail.com in your database, and you just need to type in the password and then click on this login button. So we have the value coming from our JS login.php as number 1. It signifies that we found a user in our database with the combination that we entered in the field, username, and the password. So okay, and wait for a few seconds. So it redirected to our index.php. But for now, if we try to click on this back button, we could see again the login.php form, which means that we need to set the session so that every time we try to log in with our username and password, if we are authenticated, then we could stay for that particular page, or we could stay in that index.php instead of login.php every time. So in our JS login.php, we need to set the session or start the session. So session and then start. And inside this statement, we need to set our session variable, and let's pass in our index, which will be user login, and then let's uh, pass in the user values, which is the array coming from our database, or the associative array we got from our database. So save this, and inside the login.php, we need to check at the top. So let's open up the PHP here and close, and let's check if the session with session user login is set, and add header with location index.php. Save, and let's copy and paste this one, so in our index.php we could also check if the session user login is not set, redirect to login.php. So we'll just add a element here, welcome to index. Save index.php and go back to your browser, refresh, and type in your username and password, click on login. So the user is found, click on OK. So we're not redirected to index.php. That's because we need to add one line to our files. So inside login.php, we need also to set the session or start the session, because we're using the session variable below. And make sure to copy and paste this also to index.php, because again, we're using the session variable here. So index.php, save, and login.php, save. So refresh our page. We are automatically redirected to our index.php. We won't be able to go to our login.php file because the session is set. So it's checking if the session is set, then stay in index.php. Otherwise, go to login.php. There's one more thing that we need here. We need a link for us to log out in index.php. So let's go back to index.php. So we're just going to add the link here. and this should be index.php and logout equals to true, and type in logout. Okay, save. And here we need to check if the logout variable is set. So if is set get the logout, so we need to destroy the session. So session destroy and unset the session, redirect to our login.php. Okay, save our file index.php and let's go back to our browser and refresh. So we have here the logout link. So let's click on this. We have successfully logged out from index.php. So we'll try to log in again in index.php by typing in our username and password using our email. So password and then log in 1. So we're now at the index.php. Okay, so I think that's all there is to it in this tutorial. Thanks.